Welcome to Developing Stakeholder Partnership for Successful Grants, presented by Marilyn Barger, the PI and Executive Director for FLATE, Florida Advanced Technological Education Center of Excellence. These break time videos are sponsored by the CCTA, the Center's Collaborative for Technical Assistance, an NSF ATE-funded grant. CCTA's original purpose was to respond to a request from the Department of Labor, DOL, to the NSF to have ATE centers provide technical assistance services to DOL tax grantees. And now that tax grants are over, we are focusing strictly on helping NSF grantees and proposal writers. Our deliverables are to provide technical assistance webinars, workshops, and best practice documents.
Thank you, Christina. So we're going to talk about partnerships today, and just an overview of the next short webinar. We'll talk a little bit about FLATE as a center and the ATE program, and characteristics of good partnerships, and how to really get started with those. So the National Science Foundation Advanced Technological Education program funds both centers and projects. Centers have a larger scope. FLATE's scope was to work with manufacturing education in Florida at the two-year college and, of course, the pipeline high school level. And to work in these three kind of goal areas: curriculum, outreach, and professional development. And I added partnerships down there because partnerships are a requirement at the for the NSF ATE program for all proposals that are submitted. And in particular, partnerships with industry are required to have some kind of working with industry, as we're supposed to produce technicians from our two-year college programs that support industry. So if they're not part of your team, how do we know? So that's often a challenge for many of us, particularly working with those partners in industry. So we may have a little focus on that today as we go forward. We work with FLATE as a center, work with industry and industry organizations around Florida. We work through the different colleges, we work through organizations, just however we can get our ideas and our work in front of industry partners. That's something we try to do. All right, so the ATE program solicitation very specifically, like I said a moment ago, includes expectations of partnerships, and particularly partnerships with industry. So you want to be able to validate your curriculum or the kinds of activities that you want to do for recruiting students with using industry as a big component of your project. Now, there can be partners and other kinds of partners, but I want to emphasize the industry partnerships right here. They can provide balance and mutual benefits. They can support you, help you with curriculum. They can do so many things to make your project have much better outcomes and be more impactful. The value added of strong partnerships has been documented over and over again by ATE projects and centers for over 25 years now. The partners can contribute to sustainability of your project. It could be the college, it could be another organization, it could be industry helping to sustain some of the activities that you work on with your grant proposed project. Okay, so let's talk about some partnership elements. It's important that you just don't go out and grab anybody. They have to be aligned to your mission. They have to be interested in what you're going to propose to do in your project. Have to have some kind of common values so that you can be even tighter aligned. Like-minded goals. You need to pay attention to what the outcomes are and anticipate similar outcomes and expectations for your project. There should be benefits for every partner. It's hard to keep someone in the game if they don't get anything out of it. And then you want to make sure that you engage partners who will actually deliver. And that goes with the next bullet down there, which is commitment. So you have to make sure that they're really committed. Are you sure this person or this organization will actually come through when you need their help or for their part of the project? So that's an important piece as well. Sometimes you don't know that if you don't know the folks up front, and you have to do some cha-chaing around that, but it's good to try to anticipate that at the very beginning. All right, so let's just go over a few partnership characteristics. You want to make sure that you engage in candid and honest communication about what you want to do and what your expectations are. You want to listen intently to each other. You want to make sure that you understand what their needs are and what their expectations are. You want to be able to make adjustments. They might have a slightly better idea than you have, so you want to be able to run with that and not feel so committed to your particular idea if you can get more buy-in by taking a slight side step. Appreciate each other's motivation and culture. This is really important for industry. They live in a much different world than educators do. Their day-to-day life is much more, is hectic in a lot of different ways than, I won't say ours aren't hectic, but it's different. And they're driven by deadlines every day, every hour, and those kinds of things. So you have to be sensitive to those limitations that they might have and last minute changes that they have to live with. And it may not always reflect a change in their commitment or a lack of commitment. It may just be that that's part of the culture that they live in and work in. Cultivate strong personal connections so that great partnerships are often really highly personal. And that's when you would be able to know, by doing that, you would be able to know if they're just brushing you off again and again, or if they really are, have a barrier that they can't overcome to respond to you. And you can make the judgment whether or not to give them a buy on this particular activity and engage them again, or if you need to really reevaluate that particular partnership. And of course, since we're all about measuring our outcomes and having something to report to the National Science Foundation, we want them to contribute to all partners to contribute to their measurable outcomes. All right, well, let's look at all the possibilities for partnerships. The sky's really the limit here. Here's just some, a good starting list, and that are all valued in the ATE community. Industry, of course, especially those who are hiring our graduates from our technician programs. Trade organizations, the K-12 and university educators of all kinds, K-12 for recruitment and universities for maybe subject matter expertise, as well as a pathway for our students into a four-year degree. Other ATE projects, there's lots of great work going on around the country that's funded by NSF and ATE. Lots of good ideas already in place that can be adopted or adapted or spread, or maybe somebody that you want to share your particular work with. Scientific organizations, nonprofits, lots of, especially in the outreach and recruitment areas, there's a lot of nonprofit organizations working with STEM for young middle school students, for example, middle and high school students. Educational organizations, there's lots of those around with aligned missions and goals. Some government agencies might be good partners for some projects and centers. Certification boards, lots of work being done now with industry certifications as another validation of skill sets by students. And foundations, another possibility for partnerships. Okay, so back to the how do we do this partnership thing, and what does it really mean? We really have to be able to help. They have to be able to help with the work and also benefit from the work themselves. So they do need this. What's in it for me? What's the WIFM? Looks like I have a. Oh, that's right. use the WIFM principle for all of them, and expect the partners to share the same. They should be able to understand where you're coming from, as well as you understanding what they're coming from. It's also good to try to anticipate what they may see as a benefit from a relationship and a partnership. It may not be what you anticipate, so be sure to listen to what they have to say. And lastly, on this topic, it's really good to reassess those what's in it for me and what's in it for you ideas regularly, because it will evolve and it will change. So contributing and having the same mindset and goals, being on the same page, a lot of that revolves around our wanting to have or needing to have some particular measurable outcomes of our project. So defining what's going to be measured, how we're going to measure it, what activities support their goals, and what about impact? Can there be a measurable impact? How do we measure impact? Do they have ideas for that? Do they have needs for, or could they use measured impact from a particular project? So these are important things to talk about early on, because if you don't start with it at the beginning, it'll be hard to measure something starting halfway through your project, your funded project. So have that conversation about what can we measure? How can we define our project around some measurable outcomes? And as you might expect, any partnership or strong relationship is high touch. What do we mean by that? We mean that it takes a lot of work to stay connected to your partners. So you are the lead if you're taking on this idea of developing a project proposal. Have to have a clear vision of what you want to do and the role of the partners. Not that it isn't changeable, but coming forward and approaching new partners, you want to be able to articulate exactly what your ideas are, what you're planning to do, why it matters, what your expectations are for others who work with you, and what are potential benefits for everyone involved. Certainly you want to share and sell that vision, but you also want to be able to adapt it to other good ideas that might come from the conversations you have with your partners or potential partners. It's a great idea to have your initial contacts face-to-face. It should be personal and require regular interactions that may not be related to your project. So I don't know, there could be a social interaction, something at the college, if it's a college interaction, other events that might find you in the same context of some of your partners, business activities or events in your community, for example. So before you, so that's some of this getting ready for, before you engage in the new potential partners, you just think through those ideas, and here's a shorter summary of that. Can they really contribute to your desired impact? Can you work with them to define measurable outcomes, or can they help with your measurable outcomes? Will it lead to mutual efficiency? So we get strength in numbers there. Will it strengthen all the partners? Will we all move forward in our activities and our goals and objectives? Hopefully it'll foster innovations all around and eventually lead to collaborative relationships. So I think we covered most of this, so I think I'll just let it sit here and take a voice rest for the slide. And there's some ideas that we've worked with in our own center here with a very large activity that it's Manufacturing Day and Month, which is a celebration of manufacturing every October. And we support a statewide effort to have different communities do some kind of celebration, but very particularly the center, FLATE, has worked to help different areas provide tours to industry for students, for middle and high school students. So in order to do that in an organized way, we provide a lot of resources to all of these groups that are listed in this little chart, and have developed a kind of hierarchy system and regional managers or regional coordinators that work with schools and companies. The ultimate goal is to get the students to that are on these tours to respond to a survey, a short survey about their experience at the manufacturing company that they visited, that we produce and monitor and tally all of the data. So we could just have people go out and support them doing tours and not try to account for them. But in order to have a measurable outcome, we try to track all of that data, which is like herding a lot of cats. But you can see the multiple tiers here. We depend on this kind of regional coordinators who depend on their partners. We may have partners, individual partners in different regions that we connect in the other direction up to the regional coordinator to get involved in the tours as well. So there's lots of different ways partnerships can work. Sometimes it's not just one-on-one or one circle, but multiple levels of engagement throughout the network that you're working with. Just takes organization, as all probably partnerships and multiple organization events do. And lastly, I want to just talk a little bit about partners and collaborators. Partners are usually engaged for a particular task and objective. In our cases, it's the grant project, and part of the grant project, what we want to accomplish. And they're often very just terminal. So here's this project, we get funded for 3 years, we collect some partners, and when it's over, those partnerships might dissolve. But some of them will evolve into a collaborative partnership or collaborative relationship, which is kind of a little bit of deeper relationship. There's probably much more trust and understanding of the two organizations or the two people representing organizations, that they understand that that there's always going to be mutual benefit, that sometimes one party may not benefit, but they know that the next time they will, so they continue to support the efforts of the first partner, the first part of the team. So it's like the person you can always depend on, even if there's not much in it for them at this particular time and case, but your goals are pretty well aligned, so that you are carrying them forward towards their goal as well as towards your own. So shooting for those, because that means you don't have to go out and find a new partner every time, is a really great goal yourself as you start down this partnership path, especially with industry and industry organizations. The more you know about the partners you work with, the more you'll be able to learn about what they do and what their views are, what their mission is, what they want to accomplish, and so you can turn those into longer term collaborative relationships. Let's see, I think I went the wrong way. So again, don't do it alone. Get out there and get yourself some partners and build a great team to do your NSF ATE project. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Marilyn.